round two for everybody. This is 7:14. We'll call the meeting to order. If we would, some of you weren't here when we started the other meeting, so we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Again. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so just for the record, we have the four full board members, zoning board members here. Jesse Garrettson's here. Of course, I'm here. Ed Punalto and Ed Herman is next to me, and Roger Lowell is down on the far end. So with that, we'll jump right in to the new business. The first topic on the new business was to discuss and vote to approve the minutes from the September zoning board meeting. It was overlooked where those were not sent out to us so we could review them. So I'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. So that takes us to the second item. Moving right along. Discuss some possible action on a zoning board complaint for debris fence at 428 State Street. So just for the record, zoning complaint form came in on October 9th from Josiah and Sarah Gibb with a suspected zoning violation at 428 State Street, a debris fence built without a permit, without setback, and in town right of way. The applicable section of zoning code is section 17A, section 12E. Witnesses and evidence violation is along a town right of way and easily visible. And it was submitted by Josiah. So with the complaint, does the complainant want to say anything first?
Sure. Since the time that the complaint was turned in, Mr. Barnell pushed this debris probably 3 to 4 feet off of the road. So Josiah and I would like to withdraw our complaint.
All right. So with withdrawal request from Sarah, we will withdraw that complaint. Give me just a second to make some notes so I don't forget to put some of this on the next meeting. Okay, then item number 3 is discuss possible action on zoning code proposal revision. I believe the last item we were down to in the last meeting was the verbiage of the demolition permit. So I had sent to Sarah, and I know she forwarded it out to the zoning board members, some examples of what other towns have used for a demolition permit. So, where I put it. Well, I got it here somewhere. I just don't know where I put it. That's it. Oh, never mind. Yeah, right there. Wrong stack. So I'll just start off asking the other board members what discussion you have on it. If you're able to look at some of the other examples to see where we want to go. I guess I will summarize for everybody in the audience too. The state does require a demolition permit. It's a state requirement. The town of Pitkin can have our own permit if we like, or we can just say simply that the state required demolition permit is required. So how does the board want to proceed with it?
Testing. Jess Garrettson. I've gone through 5 different proposals. They all have some merit. They all have a commonality of the state demolition permit. Some of them address the nuisance, everything from trash to smoke, for example. And some of them have a very short window to complete the demolition. I made many notes. If I were to take any one of these recommendations or examples, I would have to do some modifying if I thought it met Pitkin's needs.
Okay,
I'm just gonna do a little bit of this.
Ed or Roger?
You
Go
want
ahead.
some of it?
I'm gonna fix dinner in a few minutes.
Yeah, Ramon's gonna fix dinner in a few minutes.
Are we all invited, Ramon?
Okay, Roger.
I've not gotten a chance to look at all the things. Expectations are all based on the state statute that, there's probably not much change in it. But anyway, who's gonna service this? You're gonna have to appoint someone.
Well, before we go down that path, let me give you a debrief real quick on City of Durango and Gunnison County. Neither one of City of Durango or Gunnison County have their separate permit. They only state that a state required demolition permit. So they have a statement. The state of Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and Air Pollution Control Vision Indoor Environment Program require notification of the department for all demolitions of all facilities and all asbestos abatement projects that exceed certain trigger levels. Permits may be required to abate asbestos projects where the quantity of asbestos containing material to be abated exceeds the trigger levels. If the state requires this permit, a copy of it must be submitted to the Gunnison County Community Development Department. So Gunnison County does not have a separate permit. And Durango, City of Durango is basically the same, states the same thing. You have to provide the state permit to the building department for City of Durango. And then I just, for examples of different permits, Pagosa Springs has a permit. All 3 of these that I found all have a mark where you have to mark state of Colorado demolition permit was issued and you have to attach it. And really what I see this as on any one of these 3, what I see it as is it's a paper trail to know that the state permit was procured and then submitted to the building department or the building inspector. So that's what I see on it. It's up to this board if we want to have a separate permit application, or if we want to put the verbiage even in the zoning code that says that it's required and you need to submit that state permit to the building inspector.
So would it be redundancy in having another permit for the town of Pitkin when the state permit covers all of the abatement, asbestos and because that's really the issue, right? Is lead paint and asbestos abatement.
Yes, I believe that's the 2 major issues.
On the state side with the state permit, is it like open records where you can check and see if anybody pulled a permit or not?
I believe so.
It's a valid question. I can't say for sure. I haven't gone and looked. I don't know.
It's just to make sure that they have to divulge that they got a demo permit to the state. If it's not an open record. Yeah, but
So I guess I kind of agree with Ed in that, is it redundant to have a separate permit? If we require in a building permit or in the code, the zoning code, that says you've got to have the state of Colorado permit that's got to be submitted to the building inspector. And I'm going to think out loud here. What if we have a situation, I'm playing devil's advocate. What if we have a situation where no one is building on that property yet, but they want to tear a building down? Then how do we handle that? So let me finish up here and then we'll open up for public comments too.
One of my concerns, not knowing exactly what the state requires. One of the things is an issue is smoke and trash and dig safe. And any competent person, whether he's a contractor or doing his own work, I think is wanting to cover all those bases. The things that I have seen in the examples that I have from other towns is square footage requirements and time frames. Some of us hire somebody to come in with a roll off and have 10 days and they're gone. Others of us do it stick by stick. It could take 60 days. I like it to keep it as simple as we can. So I would prefer to have addressed in our zone code that when one is to destroy a building over 120 square feet, that have a demolition permit from the state, whether or not you intend to build right on that property. Several of these other towns mention building permits following the demolition permit.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think maybe they're getting the cart in front of the horse. So I want to keep it open and just straightforward. Let the state take care of the abatement problems and just let us address it in our building code.
Anything else up here? I mean, I'll open it up for public comments. I'd like to hear some public feedback on it. Yes, if you would please, Todd, so everybody else online can hear us now that they can hear us.
Just, it's interesting this is being brought up because I have a good friend that owns a property in Aspen. And I don't know if you all are aware, but they've effectively weaponized their demolition permits by only offering or only having so many available per year. And it has driven up the cost of housing and things there, because if you only have 25 building or demolition permits a year, you got 200 people wanting to do things, there's a list. The other thing they've done with it is the cost is absolutely prohibitive. He wanted to demolish, I believe the house was around 2,500 square feet. The permit is a little over $250,000 to do it.
Wow.
So I think we need to just, back to maybe what Ed said, I think kind of let the state take care of what they do and maybe just kind of stay out of this.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Anybody else want to give their thoughts? Tom is our building inspector. Do you want to give him say? Anybody else? Then I'm gonna bring it back up here. Nope. Anybody on the Zoom meeting want to say anything? Comment? All quiet out there. So from what I hear from the board is let's keep it simple. Let's let the state's gonna take care of their. That's a state requirement. We don't have a choice on it. So do we want to add verbiage to the zoning code that a state required demolition permit, if required, is what we require? And if we do that, then we need some kind of verbiage that Sarah would like to probably use.
Does the state require to have a general licensed contractor do the actual demolition or get the property or?
If my understanding is that if the demolition has hazardous material, then it must be a licensed company that removes that hazardous material. If it is found that there is no hazardous material, then the homeowner could tear it down themselves. But if there is hazardous material, then it's got to be a licensed company that does that.
Some sort of inspector need to come and verify whether or not hazardous material is present?
Part of the state requirement on a demolition permit is that you have a licensed inspector come out and inspect it. And then if any hazardous material is found above certain levels, then you can ask to have it retested. And then if it's still too high, then you have to have it removed by a licensed company.
That's certified to do that. That's something you can do. You know, it's- so we'd have to hire-
No.
we'd have to hire somebody else to do that.
And
So this is Tom. So just for clarification's sake. Yeah, your state inspector comes out, he does an analysis, he looks it over. You don't like the results because it's close, so you can get it retested. If it still comes up, you got a problem, then you have to hire, individuals licensed to remove that hazardous material. But that's all they have to do. They don't have to tear down the house over it.
that's correct.
They just got to get rid of the hazardous material. So it's not just a.
Yep. That's a good point. Good point, Tom.
Chair, we've had two examples in the recent history.
Mhm.
And one of them came back zero problems of any foreign material that they were concerned about. And it got tore down real quickly. The other one came back hired a company out of Grand Junction, came back with about 0.5% too high on the mortar in the sheetrock, the mud.
Mhm.
And he was very distraught because they offered to take it out for $23,000. And I'd asked him to get it tested a second time. So we went back to the same company, and the same company said, well, we can do this test for $300. This is more precise, and see if we get the same number. They did, and it came back 0.3. So again, he was able to clean it out himself, and everybody lives happily ever after. I challenged when a company that does the testing does the mitigating. Looks to me like they create job security, and I thought that second example was a prime example of that, trying to do that. So, and you're ready for a motion, I'll tell you something.
I'm ready for the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move, and you may need to edit this just a little bit, sir. I move that Pitkin requires a state permit only in the demolition of a structure and that we list it in the zoning code, probably under our building permit section, that that's all that we're required, that if the state is happy with the results of testing, we're happy.
Or just for clarification and verbiage. Before I have a second on that motion. The Gunnison County state required demolition permit, what it states. Is that the direction we want to go? Is that the verbiage we want to use?
I believe you're correct there. Just changing the Gunnison County Community Development Department to the town of Pitkin, rather than, do we need to address it to the zoning board or the trustees, or just the town of Pitkin in my book?
I think a copy of it must be submitted to the town of Pitkin.
Yes.
I think it's
The
sufficient.
2 paragraphs that comes in the Gunnison example don't mention the 3 things that I mentioned, the nuisance ordinance and the 811 calls and dig safe. But I'm quite sure that the state surely covers all those, but I have not read their requirements.
So, Sarah, you've got Jesse's motion.
I do have business.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion? So we have a motion by Jesse, a second by Ed Herman to use verbiage similar to the Gunnison County state required demolition permit.
That's not
Is-
the motion I have.
Read what you have.
Okay, I have motion that it can require only the state permit for the demolition of the structure, and that this requirement be listed in the zoning code under the building permit section.
Okay. So Sarah corrected, that is the motion and the second. For formality, then if that approves, can we use some similar verbiage to?
Sure, I think actually, if you want to approve the motion and then
Okay.
just give me.
Give you that?
I'll just put
Okay.
it in the zoning code.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. All right. So the motion carries 4-0, and we're going to use the similar verbiage in the Gunnison County.
So what I'll do is I'll just input that as a post-meeting edit, send it out.
Okay, perfect. All right. So then we're on to the 4th item for the meeting tonight. And really, it's coming down where it's review, discuss possible action on the next steps for the proposed updated zoning code revisions. And to see where we want to go, where we're going with this now. I believe we have hit all the bullet points that we had set out with the zoning code revisions, unless anybody has anything different that says we need to go back and look at that I have overlooked to put on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, my only concern is back up the road. I don't know how many different zoning board meetings we've had when we came to a roadblock on a particular item, requested attorney inputs, and to my knowledge, we've received 0. So do we just flounder along with how we had it stated? Not worry about it and let the trustees worry about it, or what's the plan?
So my recommendation would be that we take the updated revision after we've put all of our updates in it, including this demolition permit, with all of the separate forms, we've updated as well, because there's been several of those. We put that together in a package or a packet, and at the next meeting, we review that packet and see if there's any other items that are outlying that we've missed or that we need to take to the town attorney for specific. And I think at that point, we can take those items to the town attorney and let him give us some feedback on it. That's would be my preference of what we do with it, where we stand with it, but I'm open to discussion on it. Okay. So I don't know if we need to, I don't know that we have to take a vote on anything. But if we could ask our town clerk or ask Sarah, between now and our next scheduled meeting, if you could put together the packet and send that out to the zoning board members. And then we'll put that on the agenda item for the next meeting to review it. Everybody's okay with that? So Sarah, you're okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Takes us down to the last item on the agenda under old business, and that was simply to look to see if there were any updates or any questions any of the board members had on the building permit tracking. Tom did tell me that he was probably going to leave a little bit early before we covered this, but he also did tell me there were no new permits in September or October that have come in. He and I did discuss prior to the meeting that if we have any questions, I can email him those questions for clarification if we need to.
And I have a comment.
Sure, Bob.
This is appropriate for this meeting or not, but you can tell me. Bob Taylor. So next year at the Pitkin Hotel, we plan on doing some additional building structures on that green space between the hotel and the property next door, Chuck's property. And I was wondering what the restrictions are on building size that determine whether or not you need to have a permit, or whether or not it needs to be engineered. Can anybody tell me what the specifications of a building permit are that would require engineering? As far as having an architect do spending all that money doing engineering.
So I got a couple different questions you had in there. According to our zoning code, anything less than 120 square feet, in a storage building does not require a building permit. So that's item number one. If it's larger than that, then it would require a building permit as per the zoning code. The zoning code does not state that it has to be engineered if it falls under the 97 building codes. If it's a wall, say 9 foot high, 10 foot high, not included in those in the 97 codes, then it would require a engineer drawing. I would defer.
I'm sorry, I missed that. So where's the parameter where it requires the engineer?
The 97 code is for 8 foot structure walls. If you go more than that, it's not in the 97 code and it would have to be engineered.
You say 8 foot, I mean, anything greater in height than 8 foot on a wall?
For a structural wall, because that's not included in the 97 code. Not knowing what type of building you're looking at, I'm gonna defer first to go to the building inspector and see what his recommendation is at that point, because I'm not sure what you're doing. But I have seen Tom in the past on some simple buildings, there's not a requirement for a engineer drawing. But when it becomes more complex, like a house or something, you probably would want to. So I know it's not a straightforward answer.
Right. Is there any literature that we could look at to determine whether or not that whatever we're trying to do fall within certain parameters of either a building permit or engineer drawing? Side any of the towns.
There's nothing in the 2022 zoning code that talks about engineer drawings. But it,
Town of Pitkin has adopted the 97.
the 97 international building codes is what we are currently running under.
So if I just,
I would start with that.
Okay.
Be my recommendation.
thank you.
One
Can I
more,
just?
one more
Sure.
input that I would like to share. When you start considering that, remember the setbacks. And if you don't know them, we can tell you, or Tom certainly can tell you.
Sarah, you have something you want to
I
add?
was just gonna say, it's the 97 uniform building code and you
Yeah,
can check it online.
Yep.
And I also think the town has a hard copy in town hall, if you would like to check that out from our library.
I apologize for misreading the downline investment thing. It's actually eight. It's not 25. My bad.
It's what?
8 demolition permits per year.
Oh, jeez. 8 demolition permits.
Oh.
That's one way to control what's going on. Okay.
Hey, under the table. Get
Okay, so pulling back to our building permit tracking, I updated this to the latest information that we had from Tom in the September building inspector's report. There were several new permits that were issued in that report. He did tell me for September and October, there's no new permits finished. So I've got some questions on some that I think are completed, but I prefer to Tom tell me that they're completed before I just jump to conclusions on them. So, go ahead, Justin.
Mr. Chairman, last month, Tom and Sarah were disputing whether or not he gave you a building permit change from the cafe to an art gallery.
Oh, the
You,
letter,
Tommy, did anybody find that or what?
the updated letter.
Yeah, I don't see it on here.
I agree. I'm just trying to clarify.
The town doesn't have a letter.
Okay. All right.
So we need to visit Tom and see if he's gonna change
What I have
things.
on submit a letter
Okay.
for.
And I did not see the Tunnels leach field on our form.
The leach field won't be on the building permit.
It'd be on the OWTS, wouldn't it?
It's on OWTS, but we're not tracking. The only time we're tracking OWTS permit on this form is if there was a building permit granted, say to build a new house, and if we've got an OWTS permit.
Thank you. And one more question I have on number 8. The Ackermans over here on First and River Street.
Yes,
It says level foundation. Yes, that is completed, but they've done a lot of siding replacements and other items. Does that require a permit?
I don't know that any other permit was pulled for them.
That doesn't require.
Right.
That's just repairs.
Yeah, the only permit that I'm aware of was for the foundation.
Yes.
But for trim work inside, or if they're doing siding on the outside, that does not require.
exterior siding was the only thing that was siding.
I think as far as any of them that were close to the 2 years out or greater, um, we've received, we had received the letter from Molly's. I believe that was I'll have to look and see what that was. That was last year, I believe.
Yes.
And then we'll see what Tom, if he has a letter for us for the hotel. What, you said you had one more, Jesse?
Just for clarification, the very last one, number 80, Hoffelder. We ever get a check or anything? It just says on our no permit found. And the containers tell me there.
Okay. So, and I may have missed that one on updating it. Sarah, if you can help me remember. I thought Tom told me we had a permit for that.
That's correct. Yes, and I'll just verify right now, but I do believe that we received a check on
Fantastic.
Edward, tell me about the hotel that on this there that we're.
The only thing I'm aware of is the roof on your front stoop.
Yeah, we have applied and engineered that, we just haven't started.
Right, right. So it's just not completed yet.
That's interesting because I thought I had that on there and I don't see it.
No, it's listed as complete if my.
Oh, I
memory-
see it. I see it. It is listed as completed. It's the rear porch and deck.
Okay, that's the rear porch.
That's the porch, but you're doing a roof now. And I
On the
don't,
front, on the front.
And we tried to cover that sidewalk that we built on the back.
Yeah.
but we
Okay.
haven't
okay.
talked to Tom about that yet.
So on the front covered porch, I don't have it on this sheet for a permit.
Number
We
5.
turned in engineered
Number
drawings
5 is it.
Probably 6
Oh,
months.
okay, then I got you. It is on here. I marked it as complete because I was thinking the concrete porch and not the roof. And I think Tom told me, yeah, because he gave me a final inspection on it. So I'll ask him on that one on the porch. And then the rear roof, I don't think that's been permitted yet.
If not, we're actually looking at changing, instead of coming off the existing roof that's way high.
Yeah,
Talking about coming off the level where the floor of the porch is out back.
okay,
Just coming off of that with some much smaller posts so that we can keep the snow and the ice from freezing on that sidewalk back there. For handicap people and for deliveries and stuff like that.
okay,
So we haven't talked to Tom yet about whether or not we need a permit to build that structure or engineer yet. We plan on doing that next week.
okay. And he'll let me know what I need to put on
And
here.
then anything else that we do in that green space, we're going to deal with that.
Sarah,
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy with old business.
okay, one last, I'm just asked Sarah if she was looking for off builders.
Sorry, the QuickBooks shut down and.
Oh,
it's
okay.
not fast.
It's not quick, huh?
Slow books.
February.
Paid in February. Okay, so I can mark that one as
Complete.
uh
It's paid.
submit. Paid. And just an FYI on the sheet, I mean, I'll mark it green. It's gonna be on the spreadsheet, but it's gonna be hidden because it's
Last
done
one.
and over.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
But we have a final CO on the hotel, correct?
just on this tracking sheet, I have not been tracking if there is a CO. And-
Now stating the same.
Okay,
I don't know.
so you,
How that's record. Be nice to have that put in place.
The town has a record of that.
All right, and then I do have I've got a couple of questions for Tom on some that are marked yellow, they're incomplete or in progress. I'll send those to Tom and then update the spreadsheet accordingly. Rather than taking up a bunch of time here. He thought there were 4 or 5 of them that might be shown in progress here that are actually complete too. All right,
I'm happy.
is good. That was the last item on our agenda. Do I have a motion for an adjournment?
No motion to adjourn the meeting.
Ed makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Yes.
That would be Roger makes a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for your participation tonight. We did it under an hour.
Yeah.